Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to take a quick moment here to introduce ourselves.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Matthews. I'm the Senior Vice President at Spirit AeroSystems and the Chief Technology and Quality Officer. On behalf of the 3,000 men and women that I lead and the 15,000 men and women at Spirit, I'm honored to be here today to talk to you a little bit about the journey that we've been on with Deloitte as it relates to transforming our manufacturing processes and bringing those into the digital world. So.
Thanks, Kevin. And my name is Subhash Chelappan, and I am a digital transformations leader at Deloitte Consulting. And today's topic of discussion is Spirit AeroSystems Manufacturing Digital Thread, driven by AWS GovCloud. Before we dive into all the topics and content, I think it's good for us to just set the perspective of why this is a relevant topic today. Well, 5 years ago, when we started seeing an influx of IIoT and Industry 4.0 solutions coming into the market with a whole slew of various providers, we did not know how quickly smart factories will become a staple across all manufacturers. Fast forward to today, smart factories is the key competitive advantage for a lot of manufacturers across the globe. And through Deloitte's Insights study, we've found 86% of US manufacturers to deem smart factory as the main competitive edge by 2025. And it's also a great platform that recruits new talent with different types of skill sets. So you can see how important smart factories is becoming for manufacturers.
Okay, so today we're going to talk to you a little bit about the real life challenges that the aviation and defense manufacturers face and how we've evolved at Spirit to tackle some of those problems. And we're going to spend a lot of time today talking specifically about the deployment of our digital thread technologies using a Deloitte product called FloorSight running on AWS Cloud. We've effectively have built an ecosystem of smart factory solutions that we've brought into place to enable that digital thread and make our factories much more productive.
So brief rundown of the contents. We'll start with the history of Spirit AeroSystems and the type of programs at Spirit. Then we talk about the solution, FloorSight, and introduce you to the manufacturing digital thread. And we'll go into the architecture and what it takes to bring it to life.
So I wanted to start with, well, who is Spirit AeroSystems? We are not that yellow aircraft that you see at the airport. That is Spirit Airlines. We are the preeminent provider of aerostructures to the airline business. So if you flew here today, I can almost guarantee you that you flew on an aircraft that has a significant number of those components provided by our business across the globe. We provide fuselages, we provide propulsion components, which are typically in the form of nacelles, and wing components primarily. We are also a major player in the defense platform space, again, from a structural airframe provider perspective and in the business and regional jet market as well. We've got a large business associated with manufacturing as our primary business and providing these elements to our typical customers, which are the OEMs like Airbus and like Boeing. I don't have a photo of a 737 here, but if you look at that fuselage, that Spirit fuselage that you see there in yellow, that is an Airbus fuselage in this example, but we provide that entire fuselage to our Boeing customer. It has about 500,000 parts on that fuselage, and prior to the pandemic, we were producing 3 of these fuselages every day. So a significant amount of parts and material, resources, human resources, and equipment have to be brought together and orchestrated in a fashion to be successful. Our current mix, you can see there at the bottom, we're about 75% commercial, 18% defense, and 7% aftermarket. And we're actually transitioning our mix of product to be 40-40-20. So as we considered that transition, which we looked at doing about 3 or 4 years ago, we've been considering making this product shift. We knew that we needed to actually make a change in our manufacturing techniques to be able to accommodate that. So what we really looked at was ultimately, what do we need to bring all of our people into one platform so that we can get a very good comprehensive look at what our inventory positions are and the constraints associated with that, our availability of our machine assets, and ultimately our human capital and the skills required to put all that together. So we started this journey with Deloitte prior to the pandemic, and it actually has served us well because we had a head start in enabling some of those capabilities before the pandemic hit. And then ultimately, when that did occur, unfortunately for us, our business dropped off pretty significantly, like most businesses. But instead of retreating and backing up and waiting for the pandemic to pass, we actually pushed harder to make sure that we had our digital tools in place, knowing that we would go back up in rate significantly, and we're finding that happening now. And it has served us well, and it will continue to serve us well as we transition forward. What we'd like to do next is we're going to show you a 6-minute video of the transformational journey that we've been on, and we'll give you a taste and a glimpse into some of the fundamental ecostructure that we've put in place and these smart factory solutions that'll key us off into the following portion of the conversation. So with that, we'll turn to the video for a few minutes. We're really excited to show you. It's got a lot of great components of what we're going to talk to you today about.
Spirit is a Tier 1 aerostructures supplier to the aviation industry, and we are the largest aerostructures business in the world.
We build all fuselage structures and majority of the propulsion end items for Boeing programs as well as Airbus.
One of our biggest challenges as manufacturing is making sure we've got the right parts, the right people, and the right machines available to maintain our schedule.
And keeping track of literally thousands and thousands of parts is very complex.
Our supervision team was spending a lot of time orchestrating the plan in the morning. So we would lose several hours trying to orchestrate which worker will go where and what we can actually work on that day.
And so what happened is the frontline managers, instead of managing their process, they were literally out chasing down the panels to find out where they were. Meantime, this piece of equipment that cost tens of millions of dollars is sitting idle.
We knew what we thought we needed. We really had no idea how to make it happen.
We needed a partner who knew how to develop code, knew how to program workflow solutions, understood the factory floor. And so when we started this journey with Deloitte several years ago, they brought that. And they were willing to roll up their sleeves, get on the factory floor at 5:30 with the mechanics, and figure out what needed to be done and how it needed to change.
Spirit Aerosystems had a very specific problem around machine utilization, and they asked us for our perspective.
Meeting with Deloitte, we were able to envision a path forward and how to accelerate some of the things relative to the automation and the digital thread that has been lacking.
We started with tracking assets using RFID to understand how can material flow to the correct machine at the correct time to increase your machine utilization.
And it has really helped streamline our factory flows, make them more lean, and ultimately improve our productivity, our delivery, and our quality.
Once we solved that, we realized we could also start to optimize labor resources and figuring out, can we have the right people in the right place at the right time?
OptiCrew is a crew scheduling application
that schedules your resources based on the latest intelligence of machine health and asset location.
Over the past 2 years, we've kind of put together the symphony of machines and people and labor and conveyance to bring everything together using the digital thread so that everybody on the factory knows what the highest priority is and in what order they need to perform their tasks in order to minimize cycle times for manufacturing.
From a supervisor or management standpoint, they no longer have to spend hours gathering data on multiple aircraft throughout their factory. They have that information at their fingertips.
Working with Deloitte on building the Floorsight and OptiCrew is really paving the way for the digital transformation in the factories for aerospace and defense.
This implementation is game-changing for us. In some aspects, it's kind of taken us out of the Stone Age a little bit in how we manage this business.
OptiCrew provides new technology to be able to manage their business and manage their labor and manage their constraints to drive productivity. But it's never just about the technology. It's about the process, it's about the people, it's about staying focused on driving business value, and the technology should support that theory.
What we saw almost immediately was a 10% improvement of on-time completions. And then we saw about a 10 to 20% reduction in span, which helps us actually control the number of days we need to build a product, which translates into cash and savings that we can keep in our pocket, keep our business viable going forward.
Smart factory is going to be really, really important for manufacturing companies to remain competitive. There's a lot of new technology that's been put out there that can really help businesses grow, become more productive and more efficient.
And a factory doesn't have to be new to be smart. We just have to bring the right ecosystem of technologies to the table.
Plant 2, where we build the 737 fuselage, is an 80-year-old factory. And a great thing about the Floorsight and OptiCrew technologies is that we didn't have to overhaul our manufacturing process or system to implement it. It's really come in and been an add-on to the existing factory.
In order to connect your engineering to your manufacturing to your aftermarket support, you really have to have a connected digital thread, and all that starts and ends with data. So by digitally enabling their factory, using smart factory initiatives, they are able to increase their efficiencies, increase their throughput, reduce their capital, reduce the amount of inventory they have, really connecting operational levers with financial benefits that drive bottom line value.
That's the sound of money. Capture that for a sound bite.
So I hope you enjoyed the video. It really surmises all the activities that we've been focused on and working collectively together on. And we're going to get into more of the details here. But one of the quotes that my boss, who you saw in this video, Tom Gentile, the CEO, he focusing on making sure we have the right people working on the right part, right jobs at the right time. And I would add also having the right equipment available to do that. And so the transformation that we've been on, this digital thread becomes the foundational element of how we made that happen. And what we're going to talk to you now about is actually Deloitte's implementation of a product called Floorsight using AWS Cloud to answer these questions, because our business is so radically dynamic and changes minute by minute. We would normally only plan in the morning to be able to run our factory for that entire day. And what we knew a long time ago is that that plan was only good at that moment in time. And so by implementing these digital tools that we're going to describe here in a minute, we're able to dynamically understand how our factory is performing, and we can ebb and flow and change the plan at any given moment. And we'll talk to you a little bit about how we do that.
And to reiterate the business cases once again, it was material management, making sure that we know where the right materials are, bringing it to the right place at the right time. It's also about labor optimization, making sure we have the right folks working on the right jobs at the right time. And that requires a lot of data and finessing information. And then lastly, it's about avoiding machine stoppages. That's a big sink for cost and time. And ultimately, it's about building it right the first time. And that's where the digital thread comes in. And so we started this journey 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and we were here in reInvent 2 years ago. At that point in time, we had one app, and it was called AutoCells. And we took our time to build it right using the appropriate AWS services. In a span of 2 years, we have grown that into 8 applications. And that's tremendous amounts of data that we're crunching every single minute of the day. And so we'll go through those 8 applications right now. And we'll start off with what we call skills matrix. And skills matrix is essentially employee proficiency. It's about understanding, does the right employee have the right skills and certifications and hours worked, so that when our algorithm starts optimizing for who the right person is, it produces or suggests a person's employee ID with their amount of time worked, and also are they the right fit for that particular job that's being worked on. And also that information gets used for cross-training, right? When you have other employees that require assistance from more skilled employees, we utilize this score algorithm to tell us how we cross-train folks. Second item is precedence or precedence diagrams. And this solution or app is more around finding out, what are the redundancies in the manufacturing process. So if you have, precedences moving from A, B, and C throughout the whole journey, are there redundancies in that process? Eliminate that, and that produces standard work. Standard work feeds a whole array of other aspects in our solutions that we utilize, and it's a very important metric for us to track in our applications. And the third item that we utilize is an application called MES integration. MES, of course, being on the plant floor execution system, we're a layer above that. And we need to ensure the information from the claims and the stops are consistent with what we're displaying on our application. So keeping it synchronous at all times is key so that folks do not get the wrong information. Now, the next two applications are like our crown jewels. So these are our scheduling applications. AutoCells is a machine scheduling application that provides information of machines based on the availability of material, and can those materials come together on that machine to begin their sequence or to begin their next step in the manufacturing process. We have built a real robust and intelligent algorithm behind the scenes to give us, up-to-date information based on material, based on transport, movement of material on the factory floor, understanding if machines are available using machine data. It's a lot of information, but synchronizing that and trying to find the right step of being able to schedule your next job, that's where the visibility comes in. And the reverse will be for OptiCrew, which is our labor scheduling. And in this particular application, it's about the skills matrix, precedents, et cetera, that we just spoke about, comes together to tell us who the right person is for the job that needs to be worked on. And it's pretty dynamic. Supervisors get to use that on a daily basis and interact during their meetings, and they schedule on the fly, which is great, which also uses the algorithm to say, is this the right person or is this the wrong person?
Yeah, that's a good segue into these next three apps, really. So, we're a highly regulated industry, aviation and defenses, and it's long in the tooth. 1909 was one of the first production sites that went into existence, building the Wright Brothers Flyer. And since that time, the regulatory agencies have had tremendous oversight to ensure the safety of all of us as the flying public. And so what that means is that we have to make sure that the mechanics and inspectors on the floor are doing their work in compliance with the skill matrix and other subtleties, which I'll describe in a second. But because of the fact that we've actually deployed Floorsight and we've deployed tablets to our mechanics actually working on the floor now, we had the opportunity to actually, for the first time ever, provide our mechanics with detailed visual work instructions. And I kind of describe this as the YouTube way of instructional videos. Today, if you want to take something apart and fix it, one of the first things you probably do today from a tech perspective is you'll go look it up and somebody's posting on YouTube or some other means of how to take that apart, fix it, and put it back together. That's what these visual work instructions actually do for our mechanics in a compliant way. We've enabled them to see digitally how to build the aircraft and actually put that together, where in the past they would have actually had to go pull blueprints, 2D drawings, and specifications and figure out actually how to assemble it based upon the knowledge that they have. So that was a huge upgrade for us. The supervisor portal, Subhash mentioned it earlier. In the morning, what we were having our supervisors, and we've got 20 million square feet, which is the size of a small city. All of our supervision team would have to go out and figure out who actually showed up that day and who didn't, and actually have to try to figure out how to adjust their plan based upon who's there and who's not and what has to get done that day. Now this portal actually provides solutions to them. It will actually show them who is available to do that work based upon their certifications, that skills matrix component that Subhash talked about, and actually schedule that individual to do that job today based upon the constraints that are in the factory and what we want to get done. This has been a tremendous boost to our management team in their ability to actually comprehend what actually needs to happen and how to actually get it effectively done. This third piece, the command center, on this piece I'm going to talk about the command center from a constraints perspective and the operational support piece, and I'll talk about it in a different piece in a minute, but this has been a phenomenal boost to us with all of the supply chain impacts that we're all having. This command center actually tells us where our constraints are in our factory, whether it be a part constraint, it could be a people constraint, it can be a machine constraint. And again, it automatically and dynamically provides solutions so that we don't have to go try to figure that out. And it does it based upon a series of rules so that we get the most optimal solution at that point in time. This has been a phenomenal boost to us and will serve us well as we continue to work our way through these supply chain issues that we're all facing globally here. From a support organization effective point of view, one of the things that we wanted to know is how effective are our support organizations. So manufacturing engineers, industrial engineers as an example, or quality folks that need to support the factory and make the factory run proficiently. We use the command center and we look at that as a constraint as well. How long is it taking for an individual or a group to resolve a constraint that's holding up our production system? And so we can get all of that information out of the command center app and be able to improve upon it and actually make it better for the next iteration and understand where our bottlenecks are. And then finally, we have what's called an MES and-on system. Historically, in a manufacturing process, when you have a problem, you've heard the phrase pull the chain or stop the line. And-on systems provide a technique or a way for the manufacturing individual, the technician, the mechanic, or the inspector to raise their hand. And in historical fashion, they would flip a switch and a light would flash. And someone would have to see that light and actually come over and address the problem. Now what happens, because it's in a digital domain, we actually provide information about what the condition is. So when the mechanic or technician is having a problem, they indicate what kind of problem they're having and what job they're on. That information gets automatically and immediately sent to a group of people that will come over and resolve that problem for them, and they get that information digitally as well. So not only do they not have to look for the light and come over and ask what's happening, but before they even get there, they now know what the fundamental issue is, and they're actually actively resolving it before they show up to actually physically resolve it on site.
So how do we bring it all together on GovCloud? This architecture was refined over a period of 2.5, 3 years, and after finding the right services, we began building upon that foundation and getting to where we are now with 8 applications and livening up the manufacturing digital thread. Each one of those applications living as a front-end representation, but in the back end, we have a whole host of services that are supporting it and providing the information that we need in the SLAs that we require them at. And so to bring this to life, I'll start on the far left. We have a whole host of data that we're sourcing from ERP systems to warehouse management systems, including data on the ground using sensors. We're also leveraging machine data, and all of that gets aggregated into the cloud, into our data mart, where we begin applying transformations and where we begin to create the views that we need in order to extract insights from. Our analytics engine is built on our own proprietary analytics engine running on EC2s. And with that information, we feed it back to the bottom left, which is all of the different hardware and devices on the ground. So supervisors, operators, mechanics, they all have their various devices and tablets, touch screens, and handhelds, and we're delivering these applications to them. And there's a lot of demand for insights as they continuously grow, and we have to keep this architecture growing over time. If I were to summarize what are the top 4 solutions that we like and love and that we use every single day, it's RDS, Lambdas, API gateways, and CloudWatch. With these 4 services, which I'll talk about in the next slide, we have been able to achieve the levels of throughput that we needed on the front-end applications, and also bringing this with a design principle of microservices and decoupling. What does it look like in the world of Floorsight and AWS GovCloud? Well, every day we have approximately 5 million plus transactions that are coming in the span of 4 to 5 minutes. And all that data gets transformed, cleansed, and it gets provided to our algorithms to be crunched and ran so that we get the schedules and recommendations. But also, we have all the folks on the floor that are using the apps, and they generate up to 4.5 million API calls to get the feeds that they need or to get the metric that they require on their front-end applications. So keeping that seamless, keeping that operating in a smooth fashion, that's absolutely important to us. And finally, we run close to about 7 million queries on any given day. And with that number of queries running, we need an environment that is able to expand horizontally and vertically to be able to adapt to those kinds of queries and demands that we have. So like I said, the 4 top services for us, I'll start off with Lambdas. It has really propelled us in a way where we begin developing more in a microservices-based architecture, keeping our code optimized and running within the 15-minute thresholds, if not lower, utilizing throttling to kind of zero in on queries that are taking too much time, that are not optimized. And that helps us maintain the level of service for the applications when they are operating on the floor. Second is API gateways, which has been great. We learn as we go along the way, and we've been utilizing caching in our gateways. We're considering bringing in different types of caching methodologies, but APIs have really helped us decouple the front end and the back end and just focus on different aspects of development as we continue to grow. RDS, great service for us, introduces different levels of IOPS where as we continue to grow the queries, as we continue to grow the different types of insights that we're producing through our analytics, we have the ability to do in-memory OLTP caching through SQL. We've also, in the next iteration, been considering read replicas, which is phenomenal for separating reads and writes. And finally, CloudWatch, great service to have in any solution, having that level of insights of what's going on in the inner workings of, say, your Lambda or your code, and considering what you need to optimize to keep your folks on the floor happy.
So all of this has to have and yield a business value, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. So what we wanted to do is just share a small snippet of some of the values that we've already seen. And then for us, I won't even call it an expectation. We know that there's tremendous value yet to be harvested in the capabilities we've already deployed, let alone some of the other things we've actually looked at. We're really thankful, and I'll do it now instead of what I was going to do here at the end, but we're really thankful to the Deloitte team and Subhash personally for the commitment and the capability that you brought to Spirit. I will tell you, we're on the leading edge of the aviation and defense market space in terms of being able to harness the power of the digital thread and all these tools, and we're honored to work with such a great team. The results, just a few of them. So our machine utilization, you saw in that video a very intense factory that has a lot of really expensive equipment. I would guess we have probably $4 or $5 billion worth of assets easily. So a 10% improvement in utilizing what we have translates to $400 or $500 million of savings that we don't have to go out and buy new equipment because we can utilize it better and continue to go up in rate and sell more product. We'll see these numbers actually improve as we deploy across even more of our equipment space and understanding it, and also the actual maintenance of that equipment also is a big portion of this. From a labor realization perspective, our reduction in quality labor, resulting in the fact that we have product that's being built right the first time, is really important. And actually that labor realization component is because our mechanics are more capable of building product. I wouldn't call it necessarily quicker, but more efficient with less downtime. Those are huge savings. I mean, we would, any company would kill to have a 15% improvement in cost of goods related to labor alone. And as we continue to deploy this tool across our global factories, we're going to see greater and greater benefit. And probably the lifeblood of every company right now is liquidity, cash. We have an immediate 20% savings in on-hand inventory. That is cash in hand that we can actually redeploy to keep our business functioning and moving forward. Can't say enough good things about how important this has been for inventory, because now we know where everything is. We know where it's at on the factory floor at any given moment. We know how it's moving through the line. We know what's in inventory, and we also understand our constraints. So we can actually manage our inventory with a lot greater specificity than we've ever done in the past. Ultimately, that results in a bunch of different things, 3 things that I kind of keyed off of. So manufacturing span is how long does it take from the time you start building that product to the time it leaves the factory? And by reducing the number of days, or in some cases hours or minutes, depending on the production system you might have, reducing that ultimately results in a lower cost of goods sold, or the cost it actually takes to produce the product. So having these tools, being able to make sure that we're efficiently working through the factory, we're able to lower those number of span days constantly, and we're driving cost out of the system, which is important to our customers, because it's important to all of us. When we fly, the one thing that we want is we want an affordable ticket. And if you look at the price of airline tickets over the years, they've either actually decreased or stayed flat. And there's a reason for that, is because all the hard work of the aviation industry behind you, making sure that prices stay in check. So this is yet another enabler of that. And again, probably for us, this year, and like a lot of companies, reducing that working capital has been huge. So again, thank you, and hats off to the Deloitte team. Phenomenal job.
Thanks, Kevin. That ends the presentation, but that doesn't end the journey. Deloitte would like to welcome all of you to come visit our Wichita State Smart Factory. And this is a facility that's been built ground up with a whole host of use cases. And I know we touched on it, with the work we're doing at Spirit. But over here at the facility, we have end-to-end cobots bringing that information to life, being able to utilize it in different ways, quality systems and how to extract that information, and a whole host of other cool new IIoT and Industry 4.0 applications that everyone would love to see and interact with. And that could probably inspire the next solution that you're looking for. And with that, thank you, Kevin. I really like to thank everyone for joining us, and open to taking any questions you may have. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you had an algorithm in place that took a look at how many skills and certs people have, as well as hours worked. Did you run into an issue where the algorithm would always pick people with more experience, and then they were getting overtasked or overworked?
Absolutely. So,
Do you want to repeat it?
yeah. So the question was, when we ran our algorithms for our skills matrix app, do we come across a problem where the same person would be scheduled for multiple jobs or overscheduled, right? Well, yeah. When we first ran the pilot with our algorithm, absolutely. Like, we're finding, a whole host of issues with the math behind the scenes. But it's about iterative development, right? The more you find issues like that, you get the architects and the functional folks together, and we start talking to our IEs on the floor to reassess the algorithm, to reassess the rules that we're putting in there, to say that if they already are assigned, then do not, right? So there's a lot of techniques and tips and tricks that we have learned across the board, but it's just a more iterative way of building.
I think what's really interesting about it is our on-the-floor supervisors and management team always went to the same individual to solve, let's say, a variety of problems on any given day. And so what the tools really help them with is understand and this is really important, is what people are certified to do that work, because that's first and foremost. Before, they may not be able to get that information relatively quickly, But the tool has served us well in that domain space as well, as making sure that the individuals that are presented to do the work are certified. So that's an easy check. But it has actually given our supervision team knowledge about who has actually done that task before. Even though they may not have done it recently, they still might go to that same person that's probably doing it fairly regularly, but now they also know that somebody else has done it. And more importantly, what they're doing is they're actually now making sure that the individuals on the list actually go through and periodically do that work so that they're refreshed. So there's a lot of all these ancillary insights, but you're right, the algorithm would pick the best person, but our management team has learned how to use that tool to make sure that we even that out and get everybody constantly redoing the work, because we call it standard work. The more times somebody does that work, the better off and more proficient they become at it. So what we're finding now is our leaders are actually seeking to actually vary that work a little bit, because we do have people that don't show up to work for a variety of reasons, vacation, they might be sick, COVID. So it's actually served us very well to be able to use that tool and understand a little bit more insight into how that all plays out. That's a great question. Yeah.
All right, so are you guys using graph databases at all to connect like the various parts of the thread for any individual machine? And are the apps that you talked about today, are those apps that were built by Deloitte specifically for Spirit AeroSystems, or are those Deloitte products that Deloitte sells to manufacturing clients more generally, and they customized it for Spirit AeroSystems?
Great question. So it's the latter, but let me start by saying, no, we have not chosen graph databases yet, but it's in our roadmap. So we are definitely considering like new ways of making the queries in the back end more efficient, right off the bat. But because these are all transaction based and they're all transaction heavy, going that route may deter us from being more optimized in the way that we do our searches. You know, schema maintenance, indexes, all that good stuff that SQL provides does help us attain the efficiency that we need in providing the insights. But yes, it's still part of our consideration as well. I mean, decoupling like reads and writes, like all of those kinds of efficiencies are helping us attain, the quick returns on the outputs of the queries. But the solution that we've developed is part of our Smart Factory suite of solutions, and we use that at our Smart Factory facility as well. We have 2 other use cases and clientele that we have continued to grow the application on, and we continue to customize a specific percentage of our scheduling applications for our clients. So it's not specific just as Spirit. There's customizations for Spirit, but the main application, the base Smart Factory solutions, are for everyone.
Services?
That is correct.
And is there a place where we can go to actually sign up for, you said we could come to the Smart Factory, is that like a bona fide invite? Or is that more of like a cordial?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Bring your bosses, bring everyone.
Come see us afterwards.
Yeah, come see
Just
Spirit too.
Come see us and
Okay,
we'll get you connected.
Yeah.
And we'll have you out to Spirit as well.
Yeah.
So you can see it in action. Other questions?
That's it.
It's kind of hard to see anybody, but
Well, we appreciate all of you for coming in here today, and we'll be out in the audience. So,
thank you.
Yes.